to welcome our guests, Noah and Molly. And I want to just say a particular thank you to you guys for coming. Molly, I'm sure that you have a lot on your plate today and are wearing many hats. And so once again, thank you guys for making time for some neighborhood business here. We've got our guests here to talk to us about the St. Paul Audit Committee. And with that, I will hand it over.
So, good evening, everyone. I know this is not the best of days to be meeting, given what's happened in Minneapolis lately, but thank you all for being here tonight. So, as mentioned, I am Noah McVay. I am a community advisor to the Audit Committee. We are here from City Hall to talk about our work, to engage the public on our work, soliciting audit topics for the 2026 calendar year. And so I appreciate the council allowing us to visit with you today. So we'll get started very quickly. So we have
You just have to tell me when you want
Okay,
the slides
okay.
to go. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
So feel free to, yep, go ahead. We have a full agenda, but I do promise that I can condense everything down quite concisely. So go ahead. So, and I'm just gonna give a brief introduction to what we do at the Audit Committee, our composition and our history. Thank you. So the Audit Committee, our mission is to evaluate the financial and program performance of city departments, and in so doing, to build public trust and ensure outstanding service delivery, transparency, and accountability for city operations and programs. We have several values that imbue our work and support our mission. We believe in cooperation, respect, transparency, integrity, co-learning and co-development, and race equity. This is all on our website at the City of St. Paul. Feel free to. So a little background on us. We as a committee have only existed since 2020. But prior to that, there used to be an internal audit function at City Hall that was created in the 1990s. And it was called the Performance Audit Program, and it was housed within the Council of Research Department. About 4 analysts, they were on staff, they worked for the council. They actually conducted internal audits of city departments of city government based on an annual work plan that was devised by Jerry Strathman, who was the council's director of operations at the time. And then they'd be approved annually by the full city council. In the 2000s, early 2000s, there ended up being a little bit of some fiscal issues at City Hall, and the decision was made to cut all the audit staff. And then ultimately, the entire program was done away with in city ordinance in 2006. But the idea of having internal audit function never went away. And when former council member Jane Prince, seen here, and now council president Rebecca Naker joined council in 2016, they wanted to spearhead the formation of the committee, and that's how we came into being. And we are a standing committee of the city council. Go ahead. There are 3 council members. We are very fortunate to have Molly here tonight. So thank you again, Councilmember Coleman, for coming. I appreciate it. It's nice to have your company. Our chair is actually Council President Naker, and we also have on our committee Vice President Wajong Kim. Besides myself, there are 2 other community advisors on our committee at this committee, excuse me, at this moment. We do have a vacancy. One of our colleagues actually left due to having moved. But Stephanie Dilworth is a director of finance and operations at the College of Design at the University of Minnesota. We're very fortunate to have her. She's a very brilliant woman. And Jeremy Lostetter, he works in internal audit department at Hennepin County. He's also brilliant. He has a background in information systems auditing and in internal audit. So his expertise is also incredibly valuable to our work. And then myself, I actually study, I'm in grad school. I study both public administration and governmental accounting. I'm really wonky on state and local audit. I actually am working on a dissertation on that in grad school. But my day job is as a substitute teacher. I've been doing it for a little over 4 years now. So the function of the audit committee is that we have authority pursuant to our city's charter and also administrative code. We are the oversight arm of the city council. We are the internal auditors of city government. So don't confuse us with the lovely folks at OSA. The Office of the State Auditor, they are St. Paul's external auditors. They supervise and audit all local government finances throughout Minnesota. They audit our financial statements and our schedule of expenditures of federal awards, along with fraud investigations, that sort of oversight. But we work inside City Hall. We are responsible for oversight of every single municipal body that is housed within the jurisdiction that is the city of St. Paul, be it a city department, an agency, authority, board, commission, committee, TIF district, you name it, you know it, including their vendors and grantees. So it's about $900 million in annual spending that we oversee. Quite a bit. We do that through performance audits. We don't do financial audits. Performance audits are wonderful in the sense that they're very proactive. Financial audits are more so ex post facto in the sense that you are looking at things that happen and basically trying to determine reliability of financial reporting for bondholders. It determines like a government's creditworthiness. But when it comes to say really improving performance or preventing fraud, performance audits are much more effective than financial audits. Our performance audits look at internal controls, compliance with laws and regulations, the economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and equity of programs and services that are delivered here. So general operations at City Hall, along with providing policy outcomes or risks, assessing them based on assumed future events. So all these different outcomes can be used based off of performance audits. So the Yellow Book, the folks at the Government Accountability Office, they publish Yellow Book every so many years. It gets updated periodically. They actually define performance auditing in a nutshell as improving program performance and operations, reducing costs, facilitating decision-making by parties, and also contributing ultimately to public accountability. That's the whole business of why we exist. So again, what we do at City Hall is we select audit topics. We interview and select the consultants that perform our audits. I'll get more into that a little bit later. We monitor the work of those consultants, and ultimately we present final reports of our audits to both the full council and to the mayor. We also, from time to time, based off of our regular a portfolio of responsibilities, we hold hearings, we can request updates from the administration on its progress towards our any recommendations that we've made. We can recommend legislation to the full council, just like any other standing committee. We can inform the city council of repeat issues that we see in our audits. And we also consult department heads. We're going to be doing that actually really soon now that we have a new mayor. Some of her is Mayor Her meeting with us actually next month.
I think not locked in yet, but hopefully. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
We'll be meeting with her, and I know we'll certainly be meeting with her new department heads. So, and some prior department heads are still in administration. So that'll be a fun time for all involved. So the fun thing about us as an audit committee is because of the fact that we are housed within the legislative branch of city government. We are under the auspices, the broad umbrella of the city council. That gives us independence to carry out our work. Independence in the audit world is very important, both in terms of appearance and practice. It ensures the integrity of the audit process, reliability of our risk assessments, and the objectivity of findings. This is actually required by industry standards, whether it's global internal auditing standards or government auditing standards, which we and our consultants abide by when they produce their reports. So a brief overview of the audit process. I'll go through that quickly. And Councilmember Coleman, if you want to add anything at any time, please feel free. I don't want to be ranting ad nauseum, eyes glazed over. But I study this, so I know too much about this. Our process when we are choosing audit topics, there's basically like 5 key elements. There's solicitation, consultation, risk assessment, a nomination phase, and then final selection. We actually solicit topics from the public and from city employees throughout the year. And so to facilitate that process, historically, we've actually been going out to all the district councils, holding meetings with them to see if the public had any ideas, what they wanted to suggest to us through our Evergreen survey, which is completely online. For various reasons, that process kind of went dormant, but it's since come back, and we're trying to get back into a schedule that realigns our somewhat discombobulated audit calendar for this year just because of the new administration, but the hope is that, and this has been voiced by our chair and the other members of our committee, to try to tighten things up by the end of this year so we have a more clear process for 2027. While we're soliciting ideas from the public, we also consult department heads, district councils, whether it's the staff or the board members, civil society organizations, and other stakeholders to get their priorities and see what they have an interest in terms of our work. Once we do both those objects in parallel, we then perform a risk assessment, and that's largely done by my colleague Stephanie and our other colleague Jeremy. They're very qualified to do this quality control element where they actually assess all the different topics relative to our criteria that we have. We have a rubric that we go through that's maintained by one of our committee administrators, Nia, who's absolutely wonderful. And once we've gone through that process, we will put a slate of potential topics to the full council for their feedback, and then ultimately we'll make a final selection. Currently, it's 2 audits per year. I would love to see more, but we don't have the infrastructure to do that currently. So maybe in the future. But the question then becomes, who does our audits? And as I alluded to, we don't actually have the resources in-house to do that. We rely on the talented team from Wilder Research who work for us under contract. We don't have financial or human resources to do this, so they help us immensely with carrying out these audits. We have a master contract with them currently for about $50,000 a year, up to 2 audits annually. And that team is led by Dr. Heather Britt, who consults us relatively frequently in chambers at City Hall. And our project lead is also Dr. Bray, and we also have some brilliant research librarian and brilliant research associates as well. So I'm very glad that we have them. We're very fortunate to have them, given the limited resources that we as a committee have. And we monitor our field work in 2 ways. We do that with the contract oversight. The work that our consultants carry out on our behalf, we monitor that continuously. We hold hearings to get updates on ongoing engagements. Dr. Britt is our project partner. She comes in the most to actually represent our team at Wilder Research and keep us updated on the work that's ongoing. And then in terms of documentation, all field work is documented in accordance with industry standards. This extends to our scope, our research methodology. It's all evaluated against our risk assessment, which is a matter of quality control. And then our findings, how they are reported, we actually will conclude and formally publish an audit. The committee will review the findings that our consultants prepare for us. It's documented in a report. Once we approve that report, then it's formally published and becomes a matter of public record. We also will follow up on findings in order to educate the public. We do that with regular, just everyday citizens. I have a lot of responsibility in terms of civic engagement with just informing citizens about our work. We circulate our reports as widely as possible, so that way policymakers and residents are as well informed as they can be and make decisions that affect our community every day. And then we also have a compliance element. We are monitoring the administration for the implementation of our recommendations based in response to our audit findings. And then we can follow up as needed. We haven't really followed up as a committee yet, but in conversation with Chair Naker, that may be changing this year. We'll see. We also in the past, we've worked with our auditees to have them conduct further studies internally and then report their own internal findings to us as a committee and have that ongoing dialogue. So, which brings us to recent audits. In 2024, we conducted an audit looking at opportunities for efficiency and collaboration between Parks and Rec Department and our public library. And that audit was completed. We have the report on our website. You can go read it at any time. It's quite an interesting read. I enjoyed reading it personally, but I'm also a major nerd. So, and we also just recently completed for this year, or not this year, 2025, excuse me, our CIB process assessment study, which is a separate audit, which is also really fascinating. I was with Chair Naker down at Rondo Library back in, gosh, was that July? Yeah, that was July. meeting with the capital improvement budget committee to basically that audit was looking at how their process is currently operating and how it can be improved to enhance outcomes, but also strengthen governance, especially over debt issuance, because they oversee all of the capital improvement budget for the city. They make various recommendations, and they're also spelled out in state law because of the fact that they have so many relationships with state agencies and other entities, including the county, yada, yada, yada. And then finally, we have our current audit that we're still doing. Even though we started in 2025, there were some delays just due to some back and forth with the city audit or city attorney's office. And so a little bit of modification in scope, but that audit is underway. That's looking at how we manage our processes with managing records and how those record management activities adhere and abide by the Minnesota Data Practices Act, which is a major sunshine law here in Minnesota because of some litigation that happened in last year. So with that, we want your feedback. Our committee is constantly looking at how we can improve the city of St. Paul's operations and the quality of our programs. You can improve the financial and program performance of our capital city today. All you need to do is visit our website, go to our topic suggestions from resident survey, and please complete it. We do review survey responses on a rolling basis, and we also catalog all responses and put them into our risk assessment that the community advisors prepare for the full committee to discuss and then make decisions on. So on that note, I want to say thank you all very much for listening to me rant. Are there any questions, ideas, or concerns that you may have regarding our work? I'm happy to address them. I imagine that Councilmember Coleman would love to, may want to answer some as well. I don't want to speak out of turn for her though. So, are there any questions that anyone may have? Yes.
Can you think of an example of a finding? I'm just kind of curious, what would be a typical finding?
So, for example, I'll go back to the CIB committee. There were, it was found by our team, and Dr. Britt presented this to the full committee. There were some findings suggested that there was quantitative as well as qualitative evidence that a lot of residents were unhappy with, especially from nonprofits, when they make formal applications to the capital improvement budget committee. And often there'd be a lag of upwards of a year just to get actually on the agenda to be considered. And often you had to have like an inside track, so to speak. That was the term that was used by Dr. Britz. That's the term I'm going to use for this. I'm trying to be very diplomatic in how I put this. And so staff at the CIB committee, they actually work for the Office of Financial Services. They were very open to the suggestion, same with the full committee as well, about how they can be more transparent about their processes. And that was just one finding that they're currently figuring out how they can implement in terms of like our recommendation, how to remedy it, because of the fact that there are some statutory limitations at the state level that constrict them a little bit. So it's trying to strike that balance, but that is one example of a finding that we made. And the one with the Parks and Rec and the library was actually about shared facility space. So a lot of our libraries also use recreational center facilities or vice versa. So like where I live in Highland Park, we have our library is also partially a recreational center. And there was ideas about cost sharing between the two departments. Although technically the public library is not fully a department because it's almost a quasi separate entity, but it's for accounting purposes, it's treated as a city department because the library board is our city council. And so other questions?
Does your domain extend into how, excuse me, how the city sets up TIF districts? I know there's been a lot of concern about whether the but-for sort of provision of TIF districts is being violated and how the city sets up TIF districts.
I'm not a lawyer, but from my understanding of our authority, of our remit, it's very broad. We actually, our authority comes from the council's inherent authority under the city charter to conduct audits and investigations. And so that pretty much, if it relates to city funds, if it's taxpayer money that's generated from St. Paulites, it's going to be, it's subject to audit by us, so it does extend to TIF districts.
Okay, have you done any audits on TIF district?
We haven't, we've had a lot of requests for that
I'm
this
sure you
year.
Probably from some external watchdog groups.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. Any other questions? And Councilmember Coleman, feel free to butt in anytime you wish to.
Maybe we'll add just one thing on that, which is the audit committee is one tool, but also it's not our only tool, so just for
Exactly.
that, you know, the point that Noah made about, we do 2 audits a year, which is not enough opportunities to look into every single thing that the city is doing related to how we spend money, so I think this is one mechanism, and there are also lots of ways with the TIF district example, that's something where there is a conversation happening about what are other channels for us to have both a public and internal conversation about how we're utilizing TIF as a tool, so this is one tool that we have, but certainly not the only tool.
And I will add, for instance, there is quite a bit of oversight over TIF districts here in Minnesota from the state auditor's office. Auditor Blaha's office actually has a dedicated division just for tax increment financing. And so they review all TIF district financials every single year. They have I think they have a team of about 10 people there. And so they're very busy, very busy. But there is opportunities, I think, that we could be collaborating with them. But I'm not saying that speaking for the committee. I'm just saying that from a professional standpoint of knowing that there are those resources available. That's not saying that we're going to be doing that, because again, that's a decision for the whole committee to have. So, other questions?
I'll just add at this point that there is a link on the digital version of our agenda to the idea submission form. I'll also pair that with the recording of this presentation in the newsletter for later this week. So
Thank you. Questions, concerns, ideas, anything else? Otherwise, I'm gonna stop talking. Well, folks, I just want to say thank you very much for having the audit committee here tonight, and I do appreciate your time.
Thank you for the knowledgeable presentation.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
one
you to Noah and to Molly. Go ahead, Molly.
I was just gonna say, I know that this is not what we're talking about tonight, but since obviously everybody's minds are on immigration, I just wanna, without derailing us too much, say that if there is a conversation that would be valuable to have with this group, with D10 more broadly, if there are questions, concerns, anything, Shelby has contact info, I think, for me and Jenny. You all hopefully have access. Anyway, reach out, please, please, please. Happy to talk at any point. It's a very, very hard day. I think it is the first of many hard days, or first, but not the last of many hard days we're gonna have in the city and in the region. So just please, even though we're not here tonight to talk about that, happy to at any point, formally or informally.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for your post on Facebook. I really appreciated it.
And on Blue Sky, loved it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you to our audit committee for the work they do all over the place, not just in auditing and emergency
Well,
response.
thank you.
That's us.